My name's Ashley. I am here with the Talkin Kop with Chris Brack and Kev. We are going to kind of preview the Fulham game, maybe touch on a little bit of the aftermath of the Everton match. How are you guys feeling tonight? Before we kind of go into everything, I just wanted to touch on how you were feeling kind of after the dust had settled from that Everton game. Chris, I think that we got a pretty swift response from the PGMOL. I think we might have touched on it in an earlier 30 show, but I don't think we've touched on it on our YouTube show. So what was your kind of reaction to that very swift response and quite glaringly obvious error?
Truthfully, I couldn't care less because it's over. I've been enjoying the fume. I said to Kev off air, I said, fingers crossed now Tarkowski gets the win of the weekend in a game he shouldn't be playing in. Because, jokes aside, if the PGML have admitted he should have been sent off, then why isn't he automatically suspended? If you admit an error, which is a fundamental, he should have been banned, that should have been a second year, then if you're admitting it's cast iron black and white, he should have been sent off, then technically he should be banned for the weekend. But just saying, sorry, we got it wrong. You're like, it's weird.
Yeah, they can't because they gave him a yellow on the day. So as far as the rules are concerned, they've dealt with it. If he didn't get a card at all, then they could probably look at it again. But I think that was the whole point.
Yeah.
Do you remember years ago, it was like you'd often see people getting hauled back in for stuff that got picked up on video afterwards. And suddenly they're getting a 3-game ban and what have you. That was kind of gotten rid of with the introduction of VAR. But I think it's because he got the yellow card on the day for the tackle.
Yeah.
As far as the rules are concerned, they dealt with it.
Yeah, the other thing I'm not surprised, but logic would say they should have done this, which is Paul Tierney got 3 or 4 replays of that tackle. Missed it. They've all admitted he missed it. So why is he still referee at the weekend for the Man City game, which is just as big, which is a big game, but also
he's the VAR, I believe.
Surely he gets. No, I think I thought he was on.
No, he's the VAR.
No, I think he's
but to
VAR
me, he should be taken off.
Yeah,
if I was City United, I'd be appealing. Yeah, if I was City United, I'd say step him down. Why? I said, look at the Rick, he's still there. He said, I don't want that Rick coming to me. There has to be some sort of consequences for big fuck ups. Step down for a week. But they never do.
I feel like it's very inconsistent the way that they do it. You have, if there is like a big howler and then there's a lot of social media kind of pushback, occasionally they'll have someone that's maybe pulled off or kind of put aside for a week or so. It's weird the way that they do kind of quite quickly implement them back into business though. And I think the reason I brought that up is because when I was doing some of the research, I was looking back at the last Fulham game, and that Fulham game was not without its refereeing kind of shenanigans, for lack of a better term. If you cast your mind back to that, it started early. There was a tackle from Diop on Robertson that resulted in only a yellow card. There was an argument that he got the ball. It was a really high-footed tackle, and Robertson was quite injured from that. And then about 6 minutes later, we saw Robertson, who had consequently dealt with that injury, get up, and he ended up taking down Wilson on right around the edge of the box. He was sent off for what was initially called a denial of a goal-scoring opportunity. We had Tony Harrington, that was the ref on the day. He was the one that sent him off. It was a straight red. And then we had our good old friend Stuart Atwell on VAR, who was able to look at that multiple times, decide whether or not it was a true goal-scoring opportunity. He did not overrule the red card on the field. And then lo and behold, again, we get another apology the next day saying, actually, that wasn't a denial of a goal-scoring opportunity. The way that it was interpreted was incorrect. So, Kev, with that being said, and with the context of this kind of large mess up from just a couple of days ago, where are you what are you expecting from this game? Are you expecting more refereeing shenanigans, or do you think that there might be a chance that there's so much media attention right now that maybe if we're lucky, we might get a quiet game from a referee where they're, kind of mindful that there's a lot going on?
I don't know. I hope we just get someone who refs the game as they see it, and they don't go in with in the back of their mind, I have to keep it 11v11. I have to referee it a certain way. Just ref the game that's in front of you. Put the laws in place, or implement the laws that are in place, and just do the job. That's all that anyone asks for. And it's not going to be an easy day. It never is. They can be a nightmare to play against. I think the last game was a 2-2 draw at Anfield. It's like they're a good side. On their day, they've got players that can hurt you. So I think it's going to be one of them. You just hope that the referee isn't going in with the thing. Well, Liverpool were hard done by last week. I've got to be really watchful on Fulham and make sure that anything slight that they do is given. And you don't want to see that either. You know, it's just one of those things I look for referees.
Maybe you don't, Kev.
No, I don't. I don't, mate. And I don't.
I'd like to be on the other end of it for. I'd like to be on the other end of it for once.
I don't.
Well, it's Chris Kavanagh on the game for us.
He's experienced. He's experienced.
The fourth official, ironically, is Sam Barrett. So even though he had that howler, he's not really involved as a fourth official. He is going to have to stand near spot, which will be interesting.
But it's probably a good thing though that he's not in the middle for a game this weekend, because look, that whoever dished out the fixtures for the referees that night, there is no way in God's green earth that someone with his limited experience should be handed a Merseyside derby on the back of what happened at Goodison only a few weeks beforehand. You know, it's hard enough going to Anfield, going to Old Trafford, going to the Etihad to referee your first Premier League game. But to have that first Premier League game be a Merseyside derby, they're always fiery. They're always hard. That's literally like throwing someone into the fire and saying, you know, good luck with that. Have fun. They did him no favors whatsoever. He is a young ref, and you hope that for the sake of the game and for the sake of his career, he'll come out the better for it. But you know, a spell as a fourth official with Slot in his ear, and Slot will be in his ear, ain't going to be the worst thing in the world. You know, I mean, we've seen it with Arne Slot as well. He gets emotional on the touchline. And this could be one of those games, because it's like any game. First goal is key. But as we've seen with Fulham, they've got the threat. I think they're more of a threat on the counter than what Everton were.
They've got pace on them. They've got pace wide.
Yeah. But I think they got a really experienced centre forward in Raul Jimenez, who's actually hit a bit of form this season. He's into double figures now. So
Muniz off the bench. I think he's got the most goals off the bench this year as well. So
really good player.
They've got two good options in attack.
Yeah.
And the likes of Iwobi and Willian didn't really get much game time at the Arsenal game. So they've got similar level players, you know, to like interchange, if you know what I mean. Like Pereira didn't play, but Pereira and Smith Rowe could be interchangeable, if you know what I mean. The level doesn't really drop.
No.
So, you know, it'd be difficult game. I think, Ash, we're undefeated in our last 6 at Craven Cottage. I think it's 4 wins, 2 draws, but they're all tight. When you look at them, like 1-1, 2-1, a couple of 3-1s. Then that, you know, it's never a game that you can get away from Fulham. They're just not that type of side, really. Especially when they play the bigger teams. They're just a difficult side to play.
Yeah,
there was one mad one at Anfield in 2023. There was a 4-3. But in general, and we've had one comfortable win, April 24, a 3-1 win at Craven Cottage. But in general, it's normally, we've had 2 draws in that as well, you know. So it's normally tight, the odd goal in it. And this one could be a draw, you know, genuinely as well. You could make a case for Fulham getting a point out of this. It's just, they're one of those sides that when they come up against the big sides, they can raise their game.
I think the bookies have it at about 25% chance of a draw, 50% chance of a win for Liverpool, and 25% of a win percent chance of a win for Fulham. I mean, we are technically undefeated. at Craven Cottage for, I believe it's 7 consecutive matches. And their only victory for us in the last 15 was back in 2021. That was a 1-0 at Anfield. So they are usually quite close. I don't think this is an easy game. I don't think it's a game that we can go into taking lightly. It didn't seem like in the press conference that Slot was taking this lightly at all. Chris, he went through a couple of different questions, obviously, about the VAR. He talked a little bit about team selection, which we'll get to. He also spent a little bit of time talking about their fullbacks and how talented they were and how good of a game Robinson had for them. Where do you see their main threat? You did touch upon Jimenez having a little bit more of a goal-scoring run. We talked about Muniz coming off the bench and having that big impact. Where else are you looking at that team and saying this is maybe somewhere they can hurt us?
I mean, Adama Traore is always the eternal question of which Adama Traore do you get? Because
it's always going to be a big heat oil Adama Traore.
Yeah, Talkin Kop, he had a couple of games at Wolves where he'd roast Robertson, absolutely roast him. But then the other games he going like, yeah, he's run really fast, but if you look like Doku, you just go like, yeah, but he can't cross. And so he's a bit of an anomaly. Jimenez, I always think is a threat. He's really good in the air. I think when we drew at their place opening game of the season, Jimenez kept pulling onto the right back. I think it was Trent. And he just won everything in the air. He was a pain in the arse in the League Cup. I know we got through, but he's just he's a really clever footballer. And I do think for set pieces, Anderson's dangerous. I mean, our set piece record from corners is good. I still worry about wide free kicks. That does seem to be a bit of an Achilles heel at the moment, is the wide free kicks. So Anderson is a danger. He's not same level as Van Dijk, but he's really good at that diagonal pass from deep to out wide, to really spread the play. Like we use Virgil to do it to Salah all the time. Anderson does a very similar job. If you just see, will they stick to a back three like we did at Arsenal? Because that does free Robertson up a bit more to be dangerous with his crossing ability.
Yeah, Kev, do you think, I believe that was a bit of a trial for them doing that lineup. Do you think he's going to go back to kind of his trusted back four? I think he does like a 4-2-3-1 or something along those lines.
I think he'll match us up, man from around the pitch. I think they'll go back to a back four. Anderson, Bassi is one of those centre backs. I think he can be a bit rash at times, but he's a strong player, quick enough as well. So, but I think he can make rash decisions now and again. It's the two in front of the back four. The likes, if they play with Sanderberg and Lukic in the middle as their middle two, they've got size and they've got pace. And Pereira scored in the game at Anfield, former Manchester United player. I think he's at his level at Fulham. I think he'll be there for a while. But if Muniz starts instead of Jimenez, it'd be interesting to see what they do with him. But I think the biggest threat for me is Adama Traore, because he does have the pace. I think Robertson has the measure of him now. Robertson knows when to stand off and when to go tight with him. It's taken him a while to learn it. But I think he's touch wood now. But he seems to have the measure of him now, more so than what he used to when he first started coming up against him. It's the other side of the pitch is Robinson and what we do at right back. And does he be... I mean, the thing is, because he's at Craven Cottage, is he going to go forward more? I think he will. I think he'll attack a lot more. And he knows Salah isn't going to go with him. So, but I think they'll be brave enough in that. They'll trust Sanderberg to be able to get across and cover the ground, and they'll fancy whoever getting 2v1 whoever we play at right back, whether it's Kwanzaa, Jones, or Bradley. Whereas the hope is that if we can dominate the ball, that we can get our right back and look to do the same going the other way and double up on on Robinson, because then you're asking a question: is Pereira going to come and do the donkey work, or is it going to be Iwobi tracking back on that side? It's and plus the fact that the manager is fairly experienced now, and he's very good at setting sides up not to concede. It doesn't always work, but I don't think he'll go to a back three. I'd be amazed if he goes to a back three. I think he'll go back to these 4-2-3-1, because that's what he's got the players for. That's what he's got the players to play that system. That's where they're at their best, especially at home.
Yeah, well, that kind of leads us nicely into, what might happen for Slot and the predicted lineups. So in the press conference, he did touch upon Bradley being a late fitness test. He said that he had been in training. He didn't give anything away there. He did the same thing with Allison, where he said that he had failed the last of several concussion protocols prior to the Everton game. So they were waiting to see if he was going to pass that last one. I'm assuming by this time the 14 days will have elapsed. So hopefully everything is well there. So I guess there's a question there about who's going to start at keeper. There's definitely a question who's going to start in terms of that right back position. He was very full of praise for Curtis Jones. He talked about him really lavishing the challenge of playing that position, a position that was unfamiliar. He mentioned, not in the press conference, but in a couple of other clips, that it was something they'd actually been working on for a while with Jones and thinking about for a while. This wasn't sort of like a quick thing that they had just done this week. So that's something that's been in the back of his mind. And then he also mentioned Kwanzaa. He said that every time that he's put him there, he's risen to the occasion. So Chris, why don't you walk us through your starting 11 and give us the arguments for why you put who where?
I think he goes same 11 again.
Okay.
The only argument I would actually make is the only potential change I would possibly argue is maybe to give if you think Gakpo's ready for a start, but he didn't look lively. I don't see many changes. Yeah, I just don't see many change until it's mathematically won now. I can almost see him going, that's the 11. And I'm going to play that 11 until we get to the magic number of 86 points, and then I'll start to do some experiment. I wouldn't be adverse to Kwanzaa coming in at right back, because we'll definitely be on the back foot more than we were against Everton. So he does give you that defense cover, but he switched what you get with Kwanzaa, because he was fine in the cup final. He was all right defensively, but he had a nightmare away at St James's Park. So I don't know. I'm assuming it's going to be the same 11. I don't even think Alisson will get risked. I think if he's only a couple of days ago he failed the concussion test, it wouldn't surprise if he take the extra precaution with a head injury and just go give Kelleher one more game. He's played there before at Fulham. He's done fine, and then you get Alisson back in for the West Ham game. Then he's had 3 weeks, so there's no risks then.
Okay. Well, I mean, one of the things that Slot did mention, especially with regards to Gakpo, like the question mark around him, is that he noticed that many of the players, even though they were kind of declared fully fit by the medical team, they required a long time to get back up to match rhythm. And then he kind of dovetailed that with quite a lot of praise for Jota, which for me maybe indicates that might be the direction he's going in for the starting, at least for the forwards. Kev, do you differ from Chris at all in terms of who would you throw in? I know that you talked about putting Kwanzaa at right back a couple of days ago.
Yeah, I could see that one happening because of you're away from home. Robinson is a threat, and I think they'd probably have a lot more joy 2v1 against Curtis Jones in a position that he's not accustomed to. I think he could do a job there for sure. Look, I think he's an excellent footballer, but I think Kwanzaa would probably be your safer bet. I wouldn't be a bit surprised if Conor Bradley's on the bench and you see him maybe for 20 minutes at the end. But I also would start Cody Gakpo, mainly because I think Fulham will start with Thomas Castagne, and I think aerially and physically Gakpo will dominate him. And I think the other side, I think Slot is determined to play Jota into form. And I think he's just going to play him and play him and play him until he hits a rhythm. And we've seen it with Jota before. When he's in rhythm and when he's playing well, he's an excellent striker. But it's getting him from where he was to where we need him to be. But the only way to do that is by playing football. So I think he'll start with Jota through the middle. I think he'll start with Cody Gakpo on the left. The midfield three will be the same. I agree with Chris. I'd start with Kelleher as well. I don't think if you're not right on a Wednesday night, odds are you're not right on a Sunday. And I have no problems with Kelleher playing. It doesn't make a blind bit of difference, really. He's a very good keeper with his feet. You can trust him. There's no problem there. If you feel there's any slight risk with Alisson, then you don't mess about with concussions. I think football, I've said it many times on his shows, football, when it comes to head injuries, is a joke. It does not take head injuries seriously one iota. It's gotten a bit better in recent years with concussion subs, but yeah, if there's any slight doubt over Alisson, you just don't risk it. It's not worth it.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, Slot he was pretty clear, abundantly clear actually in the press conference about, we're not taking any risks. We're not rushing him back at all. So I'm sure that if he is in the match day squad at all, he will have cleared all of those checks. I don't think they're going to take any risk with any of the players. And I mean, he even mentioned McAllister and hoping that McAllister comes back from that tackle. All right. He said, adrenaline can get you through quite a bit during the game. But he needed to see McAllister in training today to make sure that there wasn't any ill effects from that challenge. The one thing I wanted to touch on that's just sort of a left field thing, he talked a lot about Jota. I don't know if you guys actually got to watch the full press conference, but just in a nutshell, he spoke about how the way he thought in front of goal and the way that he was able to kind of keep himself calm, slow his mind down, and really make the right decision. And he kind of went on from there, again, just speaking about how much they missed him for 5 to 6 months, how great he was at the beginning of the season. And it kind of brought up the question about whether or not you think that maybe he's a player that might actually stay for next season if we are to do a little bit of rejigging in the front line. Chris, would you just, not to go too deep into the topic, it just kind of got me thinking, would you be okay with keeping Jota as our bench option number 9 for next year?
On paper, yes, because we know what he can do and you're not reliant on him. My concern is we have another Divock Origi situation where he's our bench option.
Yeah,
he's our bench option, and whenever we needed Origi, like say when Mo Salah was on AFCON, that was always the month Origi was missing, and that's where you get frustrated, and that's anything you can't do with Jota. I was listening to the Anfield Rapid. I do agree with them. I think when this league season's over, don't be surprised there's an article that comes out that explains what that injury was, because I'm thinking it was much worse than.
I think it was some sort of shattered rib or something pretty serious.
Yeah, but I think it's like shattered rib, probably a bit of a punctured lung situation, and it wouldn't surprise if it's one of those injuries that does take a while to get yourself back. Because we've all said he's not looked right since he came back. He just hasn't.
Yeah.
He's looked a yard off everything
in the past, and I mean, if we break our arm, or our leg or something, it takes us quite a while to get back with physical therapy and everything. We're expecting these guys to go back at 100 miles an hour and be exactly the same way they were before they came. And, it definitely, it is something with Jota where he is a bit fragile. Kev, again, just quickly, how would you feel about that? He's 28 years old. We know that we can't depend on him for the entirety of the season. He's always going to be injured for at least a chunk of games. How would you feel about keeping him as a backup option, just knowing how much work that we have going forward that we have to do this summer?
But when it comes to players, everything hinges on the contracts, because that determines how much you're going to have to rejig your transfer priorities. Look, I just don't think you can trust him. He just gets too many injuries for someone of his age. He's been at the club a long time now, and
his contract is until 2027. He did
Yeah.
extend it, so he's still here for a little while.
yeah, he's got 2 seasons left. I think you could look at it two ways. They could keep him until because here's the catch-22. If you sell him, you have to bring in someone who's as consistent in front of goal. I mean, you have to be bringing in a forward who can score goals at top level and who's comfortable at being on the bench, playing off the bench from time to time, and isn't going to create a problem for the squad. And the other side of it is, if you're going to sell Darwin and potentially you lose Mo, it's interesting what Slot said about his composure in the box. It's a very interesting thing to look at. Is that the type of striker he's going to be looking for?
He spoke about Mo as well, kind of both of them in the same breath. He was talking about how they both had an ability to kind of slow down their train of thought almost and really pick the right option, almost analyze a keeper to the point where they would know which way the keeper was going to go and choose the opposite side, just really down to like the nitty gritty. And it seemed like he was speaking in extremely glowing regards to that. So that seemed to me to be the direction that he was looking for.
You can make the case as a player, as a standalone player, you can make the case for keeping him 100% because he is a really good finisher. He's very good at dribbling in the box with close control. We haven't really seen that much in recent months, but you saw it a few times in that Everton game where he drifted out wide, got the ball at his feet and ran at players. And you saw it for the goal as well. Really good into play, composure in the box and composure in the finish. You know that he's got that in his locker, but you also know that he's got 4 to 6 weeks missing with an injury and another 3 or 4 games to get him back up to speed. But to replace him, I think a lot of it, with 2 years left to go, if you get a good offer for him, I don't think the club will snub it. I think the club will look at it if they get good offers for anyone across the forward line.
What would that look like for you? And a good offer for Jota?
30 million, 35 million.
Considering the kind of there's not a lot of 9s out there on the market right now.
No.
I mean, I know that he's older. He's going to be appealing to a different group of people. He's probably not going to be a starter for them either. I mean, maybe. Entertain that.
Sorry, I lost connection there for a second.
Sorry, I think we all did. I was saying, Chris, would you entertain something similar, like a 30 to 35 million offer for Jota? We are kind of going all around. Hold on. Technical difficulties.
Yeah, we're all jumping around there. I think if the right offer comes in, maybe. I'm starting to think there's just too much work that needs to be done.
Okay.
So it wouldn't surprise me if we actually just decide keep Jota, replace Núñez, possibly replace Diaz, assuming Salah stays, and you kick the Jota problem down the road for the next summer.
Okay. Are we all kind of back in our spots here? Because I feel like
we all just had a moment.
Hold on.
I think we had a moment. Oh,
hold on. I just want to wait a second for the chat to confirm that they can see us because I'm looking at the live shot now and we're not there. Okay. Can you guys just throw in the chat if you can see us? Because apparently we're having all sorts of technical difficulties.
Yeah, on YouTube I can only see you, Ashley.
Okay. All right. Well, apparently I'm the only one that's here in the chat.
Can you hear me, Ashley?
I can hear Kev. This is fun. I'm not in charge of the back room here. This is not me.
All right, Chris, don't press anything. Just right.
I think your daughter says that she can see you, Chris, so that's good.
Oh, she's in the chat, is she? Oh, she is, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on. If someone can hear me, either Chris or Kev, can one of you give me your prediction for the game, and then we'll see if we can go from there. And if this still persists, I will just give my prediction. Chris, can you hear me? And
Yep.
Okay.
I will go 2-1 Liverpool, Salah, Jota, and I think Jimenez for them.
Okay. So the interesting thing about Salah is that he has scored 8 times in his last 4 away games. Or Liverpool have scored 8 times in the last 4 away games, and 8 of those goals have either been scored or assisted by Salah. So I do think that Salah is going to be involved. I'm going to give my prediction now. Fulham was my kind of absolutely horrendous prediction from the beginning of the season. I messed it up royally. So I'm going to say really clearly, Liverpool win this game. I think Liverpool score 3 goals. I think that Jota gets on the score sheet, and I think that we see a renaissance with Mo Salah. I think he's going to get 2 goals. I think that Fulham might score 1. If it's Allison, I think sometimes he kind of has a rick in him when he's coming back. If it's Kelleher, I don't know. I mean, he's kind of surprised us all with a clean sheet here or there. So anyways, my final score prediction is going to be 3-1 with Liverpool winning there. I'm so sorry for anyone that's getting seasick or commenting about aliens. I have no idea what's happening right now. This has never happened. Kev, if you can hear me, can you give me your prediction?
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here. No, I think it'll be tighter. I think it'll be 2-0. I think we'll win it 2-0, but I think it could be late second half that we make it safe. I say it's this time of year now. Everyone's going to be scrapping for every point going. Away points are tough enough to come across in this league. So it's, I'll go with 2-0. I think Gakpo and McAllister.
Okay. Gakpo and McAllister. That's good. I would like to see McAllister on the field. I don't even know if you can see me. I feel like I'm not on the screen, but I'm just going to speak into the ether. Maybe FSG are shutting us down. There's a little bit too much transfer chat with Jota there. So, maybe we're getting shut down. I don't know if it's better to just call this if it's not working. If you can still hear me, and if the people in the chat still want to continue, I just want to walk through really quickly what's going on. A couple of big games coming up this weekend. So just before we go and we kind of sort out all of these technical difficulties, Chris, what do you think is going to happen for kind of the big game that we have eyes on, which is Everton versus Arsenal?
I'm hoping for a 1-1, but I think Arsenal might sneak it 2-1. Hey, we're all back.
I have no idea. I have no idea who's back and who's not back. I'm just I said, we're just speaking into the ether. I think everyone can hear us. They might not see us. Madge says I'm a disembodied voice, so we're just gonna go with that. It's fine. It's like the old school radio shows.
Yeah, you're having an outer body experience.
It's fine. It's fine. It's actually really entertaining.
We finally broke it, Kev.
Kev, from the ether, do you want to give us your prediction for that Everton Arsenal game?
I think Arsenal are going to find it really tough. I think Beto will give those Arsenal centre-backs a really rough day of it. It wouldn't surprise me if Everton get a draw.
Okay, that would be nice. I mean, we do have the added benefit of Tarkowski being on the pitch when he really shouldn't be on the pitch, and it would be very poetic if he had some sort of role to play, especially with, we have confirmation now that Gabriel is going to be out of that game. I have no idea about Timber. I know that White is out. I'm sick and tired of the whole defensive crisis thing, but they do have a lot of things to contend with. So I think there is a chance there. I think there's a chance for some sort of upset. I do think that Everton they have one day less to recover than Arsenal, which I think is definitely going to have some sort of bearing. I think that's probably why Everton was in favor of moving that game back a day. But yeah, I'm hopeful for that. There's a couple other standouts of the weekend. I think the Villa Forest game could be quite entertaining. Chris, do you have any sort of prediction for that one?
I'm going to go with score draw.
Score draw. Okay. Kev, what about you?
I think Villa beat them, but okay. I think it could be like a 3-2.
Do you think Villa or Arsenal are going to be impacted by having their heads turned to Europe next week?
I think Villa will be right up for this. You'll have a lot of players looking to start in Europe against PSG, especially in the forward line. And no better way to put in a performance and get a win at home against a side who are, flying in Nottingham Forest at the minute. And but the only thing is, it's a completely different game to what they're going to face against PSG. We know that, so it's, they'll want to go into that PSG game ideally on the back of a win. And being at home, they've got every chance.
Okay. That sounds good. We've got the Manchester Derby, which we touched upon with Tierney being involved. I don't really give United a chance. Chris, do you see any sort of upset on the cards here?
Might be a draw, actually, because United's form is win one, lose one, draw one. That tends to be the way to do things. So I think if United score first, I think then they'll get a point out of the game. If City score first, United will do what they always do, which will be capitulate. So, but yeah, so I'll say a draw, but I can make an argument either way for even.
All right. Kev, any sort of, we'll close on this one just because I'm getting dizzy here, just trying to figure out what's going on. Do you see any sort of upset on the cards for United and City?
No. I think Man City could really put a score up. I think they'll want to put a score up, especially after the announcement today with KDB.
Yes. So in case anyone's been living under a rock, De Bruyne decided that he is going to be leaving the Premier League this season, potentially going to either the MLS or Saudi, unconfirmed, but that's probably his two likely destinations.
I think he's going to. I think he'll be going to the MLS myself.
I mean, he's plenty good enough to be playing in the MLS. He will. Whenever people come over, especially from the Premier League, I feel like they stand out like head and shoulders, especially for the first year or two while they're transitioning. Yeah. Like their fitness is still quite significantly higher than what's on offer here. And that's not to slate the league. It's just the Premier League is the best in the world, and there's a considerable jump. So I could see him doing quite well here, and I could see him maybe being the face of. I think it may be the LA Galaxy or one of the West Coast teams that were looking at him. It would be nice for them to have someone as high profile as that to maybe just compete with the kind of juggernaut that is the team down in Miami, which is just kind of gathering all of those big names. So I could see that happening for sure.
Yeah, it's just the only thing you'd worry about him and players like him is. So people get the idea you're going to the MLS and it's going to be a nice, easy ride. The traveling that the players put up, the numbers of miles that they put up playing away games is crazy. And it's a different kettle of fish. And it's something you'll not be used to. It's all well and good during Europe. When you're playing in Europe, you'll probably play 8 away games, maybe 10 in a season, or 8 or 9 away games in a season max. This is going to be a league where you could be traveling a few thousand miles every weekend. It's nuts. It takes a lot of getting used to.
It's a slower pace, though. It's a slower pace. I will say the weather is all over the map. It's actually all over the map. So if you think it's bad having kind of like your little hand warmers in Manchester, wait until you're playing in Colorado when it's, negative negative degree. I don't know what it would be in
Celsius. You're up high as well. You got
you're also at altitude.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of things. But I think in terms of prolonging his career, just in terms of demands on the body, other than the travel and other than being cold, I think it actually could be quite good for him. And
it'd be good for the league as well.
Persona. Yeah, I hope so. I hope
be good for the league as well, especially with the World Cup around the corner. And his ability on the ball, his passing range on the ball, his vision is something you'll never lose. Superb player. Yeah, would always get into top 5 Premier League midfielder of all time discussion. You can't have a Premier League all-time midfield discussion without him being involved in it. And that's how good he is.
Yeah, I mean, I bear him no ill will. I think every time that I watched him play, he was always in his prime, a player that really struck fear into me. You gave him the ball, he could do pretty much anything he wanted with it. Chris, do you have any kind of final thoughts on KDB and that announcement, and maybe just how he's announced it? We have a couple of players that, there's contracts up in the air. I actually thought it was quite refreshing the way it was announced, how we haven't heard anything really about where he might be going. We haven't heard anything from his camp. We haven't heard anything from him. He just came out and he, made this announcement. Obviously, his contract is in a different place than some of our players. Just any sort of closing thoughts on KDB and how that statement came out today.
I think the way he's left is very similar to how we found out Bobby Firmino was leaving. It's kind of like, I'm leaving. I will be going somewhere else. I'm not saying anything now until the summer. Which, in an ideal world, we'd like all players to do that. But in terms of a player, his passing was ridiculous. And he got some big goals. And listen, he'll go down as one of City's greatest players. And you have to respect it. He was one of those players that if he wasn't playing for City, you were like, thank Christ for that. You were made up he wasn't playing because he was a nightmare. He underrated how strong and physical he was. But yeah, his technique was unreal. So, and Kev's right. When you talk about all-time midfielders, he's in the conversation, which is the highest compliment you can give him. So, yeah, it'd be a loss to the league. But I think the writing's been on the wall probably since middle of last season that his powers are probably waning. Father Time waits for no one. But listen, if he goes to MLS, hope it goes really well for him.
Yeah, I think he's one of those in the future that, whether it's a Legends game or, whether it's some sort of best 11 in the league, like his name will be mentioned multiple times. If he's coming back to the league, I think people will buy tickets just to see him. And I think in terms of segueing, we have a couple of shows that kind of talk about, historical figures. And there's one that's happening tonight in about 10 minutes, hopefully, which will go a little bit smoother from the visual standpoint than tonight, which I apologize for. But if you're interested, there is a Patreon show that's happening, like I said, in about 10 minutes. It is called Forward Thinking. It's going to be Chris and Kev and Gav as well. And they're all going to be talking about the original managers of the first year of the Premier League, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Chris.
No, that's correct. We're going through the 92-93 season, looking at the premise of the show is we bring a manager up in this case and we just describe them in 4 words or less. That's the only rule about them. We sometimes go into a bit more detail to explain it, but that is just your 4 words or less. In terms of what you describe, whether it's how they were as a manager at that time, what you think of them, there's no rules for that. You can do whatever you want. Last week we did the Barcelona side that beat United in 2011, which was good fun because it was ridiculous. Some of the players they had there, absolutely ridiculous. So listen, it's just a bit of fun, and we'll swap it around from Liverpool and other teams. So so it's a Patreon exclusive. So sign up. It's free for the first month. See if you like it.
All right.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting. I mean, the last thing is just a little bit of housekeeping. Again, I'm this disembodied voice from the ether. I'm just going to talk really quickly about Peter Smith's 2 projects. One is Phil Lynott from the Enigma show at Vicar Street in Dublin. A few of those shows have already sold out. I believe there's a few that are in June that are still available. I think I think it was Kev that put in a video in our Telegram of him performing and singing, and it was absolutely incredible. So if you're in the Telegram chat, check that out, because I didn't know he could sing that well. And then the last thing that he's doing, actually probably not the last, he's probably he has about 10 things probably lined up, I'm sure, but it's called Code Red Spain, which is a film that's going to be released later this year. And I think he has one of the lead roles in that. So yeah, he is out there kind of showing us all up with his incredibly versatile skill set on stage, singing, and on the silver screen. So we look forward to that. And if you want to support him, he is a member of the show. He comes on all the time, and we hope to have him on soon. So yeah, that's all of the housekeeping. Sorry again about all of the Brady Bunch kind of musical chairs that we've been having. In case you're dizzy, I guess we should probably put some sort of disclosure content for like motion sickness or epilepsy or something. I'm sorry about that. But anyways, I've been Ashley. This has been Chris. This has been Kev. In case you can see us, if not, it's been our voices, so you'll just have to take my word for it. And yeah, we'll talk to you guys maybe tomorrow. I know these guys are going to be here again in about 8 minutes. So yeah, check that out on Patreon. And I hope you guys all have a really nice night, and hit the like on your way out. Bye, everyone.